This week's Parasha is Re, and it coincided with a talk I gave 8 years ago on the 26th of August 2014 called Can Fracking Solve South Africa's Electricity Crisis and at What Cost? And you can see the slide in front of you is my power station technology. That's my company. You can see solar panels at the top and the rainbow over the wind turbine, the Tesla car. At the time, the other Teslas were created afterwards. You can see the one on the left, the Model S, which was new at that time, and then the Jewel on the right, which was South Africa's electric car. South Africa actually had an electric car before the Tesla, but unfortunately the South African government didn't put any money into it. At the time, the South African government had spent 10 billion rand on the Pebble Bay modular reactor when the Jewel needed 10 billion rand of government sponsorship, plus all the private sponsorship, plus getting the car this far had cost private people millions or even hundreds of millions of private investment. So let's see what we see. Let's see if I can go to the next slide over here. So in March 2011, the government gazetted. That means that they put in the government publication to say we want to make this a law, that giving the public 60 days to comment on fracking. Fracking is hydraulic fracturing. And what it is it's drilling through the bedrock underneath any water and then finding gas that's trapped in pockets underground. So it's not big gas reservoirs, it's actually gas trapped in rock. And in order to get the gas out, one needs to look at putting so many chemicals in, different kinds of chemicals, doing explosives, explosions, and so on. And this coincided with Re. So what I did is I said, okay, let's look at a biblical view of Re, which means to see. And then what do we see? What does South African governments see? What is fracking? What does fracking do in the landowner's view? And then, of course, I'm not just talking about the person whose farm the mine is on, the fracking mine, the fracking well is on, the oil well is on, but also that we're all landowners. Even if we don't own any land, we're landowners because we inherit the earth and we look after it for our children. And as I've said in other videos, our main job on life, our main purpose is to look after the planet and leave it in a better condition than we found it. So going to the Old Testament, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, looking at Re says, see, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. And this happens in Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the 5 books of Moses, chapter 11, verse 26, just after the Shema, the Jewish mantra. And you can see the word Anochi, Re Anochi, and Anochi is the higher self, the conscience. So it's not just referring to I, but it's referring to the higher I, the Anochi, our consciousness. And then there's the klala, the last word, and klala, the extra L becomes heavy, a curse, but kal, kuf lamed, means light, easy, simple. And then adding another lamed, the light becomes a curse. So what is this that we set before us that is so easy? And as we've seen from Asagioli and others in the past, I've spoken about how we can have free will versus temptation. And free will is the opposite of temptation. Temptation is taking things because they're in front of us, being myopic and not looking at the big picture. Whereas free will is doing things because we believe in a different kind of future. So Genesis chapter 1, verse 28 and chapter 9, verse 1 talks about, and he blessed them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And we all heard about being fruitful and multiply, and for me it's about multiplying ideas. And replenish the earth means put it back the way we found it. Are we replenishing the earth with people, or are we leaving it as we found it? God replenishes the soul in Jeremiah 31, verse 25. Satiate. Are we happy with our lot? Do we really need to destroy the planet for short-term gain, or is there something else that we can be doing? And then there's something called Baal Tashkit, Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 90 to 20, which says, don't waste and don't destroy. It says, when you lay siege and battle against a city for a long time in order to capture it, you must not destroy its trees, wielding an axe against them. You may eat of them, but you must not cut them down. And this takes us to a very big discussion about the environment, about environmentalism, about looking after our environment, about looking after our planet, about looking after ourselves, about looking after our future. and this discussion in Re'eh about I give you blessing and I give you curse. I give you temptation and I give you free will. Will we look for the blessing? Will we look for the long term? Or will we try and take what we can today and who cares about tomorrow? So there's a video, and choose life, it's our sacred duty, our Parashah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the links to the videos underneath in the commentary, and you can watch the video. And the video talks about our sacred duty to look after the planet from a Jewish point of view. So this was 2014. We already knew, we already had 6 years of load shedding starting in 2008. South Africa has an electricity crisis, it has a water crisis. And if we wanted to do fracking, it would take 12 years to get going, which would take us to 2026. Unlike America and Europe, there's no pipeline infrastructure in South Africa. So in other words, what would happen to that fracking is that it would be exported directly to Kucha, where there's a new big port being built in the Eastern Cape. We've got coal, 5 years of building, so for actually 7 years. The cost was meant to be 158 billion. Back then it was already 260 billion. Now it's 500 billion plus. It's not finished. And then what about renewable energy reductions? We can have a 75% decrease in 6 years. We had a 75% decrease in 6 years, and we've now had another 75% decrease in 6 years. And yet coal, nuclear, gas are hundreds of years old, but there's no learning. Every coal power station is more expensive than the previous station. One. Every nuclear power station is more expensive. Every gas power station is more expensive. Whereas every renewable energy power station is cheaper. The government has the Independent Resource Plan, Integrated Resource Plan for Electricity, IRP, which looks at electricity, and it talks about different scenarios. There's the rooftop solar scenario, there's the gas scenario with 27 or 28 gigawatts of gas, and there's the photovoltaic scenario, 55 gigawatts of PV, which can be put on existing rooftops without destroying fields, without destroying green. We don't have to build new infrastructure to install PV. We have the grid. We keep getting told that the sun shines in the Northern Cape. The sun shines everywhere. And then we had the big gas scenario talking about 68 gigawatts of gas, as opposed to the previous slide, 28 gigawatts, and then only 16 gigawatts of PV. So these are technology options from the IRP. And then there were these so-called CO2 reduction trajectories, where we'd have an increase until 2022, which is this year, and then we'd see a decrease, theoretically. And then we'd have this Eskom pricing, where we'd see price increases until 2018, and then there'd be decreases until 2025, and then there'd be increases again. As we've seen, there haven't been decreases. In fact, the government wants to put up the electricity price by another 38% next year, but it's not just 38%, because there's going to be costs of using the grid, and those costs are going to go up by up to 400%, 4 times, if you have 3-phase power. And yet, when you look at long-term trends, electricity prices are coming down, they're not going up. In 2010, the government said that there might be a shortage of electricity from 22 to 24 and from 23 to 28. So we knew in 2008 and 2010 and even in 2003 that we would have electricity shortages from 2008 until 2028. So let's look at fracking. Then there was a marketing video. I'll put the link below. And then we were told that it's all good. It's a time-tested technology. There's 1 million wells. It must be all about okay. We need it. It's safe. It doesn't hurt the environment. We follow the rules. These are all the things we learn by watching the videos, by learning about fracking. And yet, the CEO of Exxon said he didn't want to have fracking on his farm. In America, a farm is called a ranch. NIMBY, not in my backyard. So he was happy to do fracking somewhere else, but not in his back garden. But why not? I mean, it's safe, isn't it? It's not going to pollute the water, right? So what is fracking? Fracking is drilling a well, vertical, and then going on a curve to make it horizontal, and then drilling under the ground for hundreds of meters, pumping in a lot of different liquids. We're going to look at that. Making explosions. As a result of explosions, the gas leaks out and comes to the surface, and so on. The gas pipe is surrounded by piping with concrete to prevent the gas getting into the water, but unfortunately, as we've seen, that doesn't always work. Lower down, you can see the explosions that happen, gas comes out. This is what a typical frac pad looks like on the top left. You can see the village, it's right near a village. You can see how the water is being polluted on the right-hand side. So then we had fracking is okay, it's another presentation. I'm going to put that slide share down below and the website, and you can look at that. And then another presentation on SlideShare, looking at the good, the bad. And then this is what the landscape looks like when there's fracking. This could be in Texas, for example. Hundreds of frac pads. We frack, go horizontal, drill, another frac pad. This is what our Karoo looks like today. Maybe this is what it's going to look like tomorrow. Do we really want to go from this to that? And then we have frac pads that go wrong. Here's a polluted river. The river's going out to a lake. In this case, it could be going to the sea. And look at that river, that orange, that disaster. What about the villages on the way? What about the farmland? What about the people drinking this water? What about people eating the food that's been grown with this water? So here's an animation showing the fracking and then the gas coming up. And then there's waste going into an open wastewater pit. And then there's trucks that leave, take the gas away, and so on. And we've heard of the results, such as earthquakes and other problems. I mean, Johannesburg's used to earthquakes from the mining, and it can be even worse with fracking. So this number 3 and 4 is where the wastewater is pumped into other wells. The shale is where the gas is in the ground, and the wastewater is either left on the surface to evaporate, to make our air even more dirty than it is already, or it's pumped into the ground and it can leak into the surface. And here's some fracking chemicals where there's acid, there's biocides, there's breakers, there's all these different things. Friction reducers, ion control, non-emulsifier, pH adjusting agents, prepping agents, scale inhibitor, surfactant. It tells you what these chemicals are doing. This reacts with that reacts with that does that. So, and then there's all kinds of weird stuff going in there. And this is the toxic pollution that we're pumping into the ground on purpose to take some gas out. And then what's happening? The blessing and the curse, or the curse and the blessing. What do we choose? Do we choose to be environmentally friendly, or do we choose to pollute the planet? People are getting sick. Why are they getting sick? Why are people getting sick? Here's a joke. Fracco-Cola. Would you drink this? The fracking people say that the water is drinkable, but I'm not sure that the executives would want to drink the water, or I want to drink the water, or you. And then fracking facts from Treasure the Karoo, an action group that I was part of at the time, and we're still in the background looking and making sure that this doesn't happen in South Africa. And especially in the Karoo, where we get Karoo lamb and we get so much other beauty in the Karoo. Here's a frac pad. Really, really healthy environment, can you see? Not really. There's a house in the background, and look what the person sees in their front porch when the frackers arrive and take the gas out. And when they leave, what do they leave behind? Here's a zoomed in view. All the trucks, all those trucks bringing chemicals, pumping chemicals in, taking gas out. Goodbye. And then there's the massive traffic in the towns and cities. where the fracking happens. So all the roads would have to be enhanced, they have to be rebuilt. There'll be thousands of trucks going in and out. This is what happens. Short-term thinking. There's a wastewater place. There's flaring. So there's gas we can't use. So what do? We burn it. And this is in North Dakota, Bracken Shale. And this is flaring, which could power 1 million cars with oil. But again, we've just had 2.5 years of learning how to work from home or have our office at home. Are we rushing back into offices? I mean, I actually think that the traffic recently has been worse than before COVID. I think it's because people haven't been in their cars and they're really rushing out to get into the traffic, get into the pollution, all the toxins sitting in traffic. And there you get the night view. There's Chicago on the right, Minneapolis, and then top left is burning of waste gas flaring. That's what it looks like at night, as bright as a city. And then we get told that there's going to be a boom in jobs, but how many jobs are actually created? Looks like less jobs are created. So maybe there's more jobs in fracking, but tourism and farming has gone down. So the net amount of jobs is a jobs decrease. Here's a beautiful view of a nice house on the right and the frack pad in the back garden on the left. And then there's this website where you can search for wells and look where all the wells are. 77,000 wells registered by 2014 in America. And this is the Karoo. The yellow is, we think of the Karoo as just being a tiny bit in the middle, but actually there's the Karoo Basin, and it's a much bigger amount of space than just the so-called Karoo. And here's the exploration that people want to do or wanted to do. Here's the Karoo, beautiful Karoo. And there's more videos. Jonathan Deal from Treasure the Karoo got an American award. And the fracking song, Crawford their story, South Africa from above 30 seconds, and Unearthed official trailer, Breaking the Code of History is a book I have on my shelf behind me. And it says you need 3 things for real fast growth. You need resources, you need labor and capital, and you need electricity. South Africa's got the first 2, but the third is decreasing. So we're at decreasing electricity, and since the 2000s, and as our prices go up, the electricity provision gets worse and worse because there's no incentive for Eskom to make electricity. They can employ thousands more people than they need, about 15,000 people more than they need. They can pay them high salaries, and all they need to do is increase our prices every year. And that means that there's no incentive for them to actually make electricity. We should be the richest country in the world. We're exporting coal, anthracite minerals, gold, uranium, silver, pyrite, osmiridium, manganese, iron ore, ferrochromium, platinum, vanadium, iron, titanium, copper, nickel, fluorspar, phosphate, diamonds, zircon, lead, zinc, luminosilicates, antimony, nickel, vermiculite. We're exporting jobs because all of these minerals with the coal and anthracite are being exported, and then we're importing finished goods, and we're importing inflation, and we're importing a poor inflation rate, a poor exchange rate, high inflation. This was 2014. So many people like me come along, we warn, we say, this is what's going to happen. South Africa's got 10 million jobs short because the cost of Eskom not making electricity is 10 billion rand a day of loss to the economy before even load shedding. If you need that graph, please ask me. I'll show it to you. It's in another presentation. I'm a big fan of renewable energy. And then you had this big advert from a quit coal community, which says South Africa's coal plants have a new filter. His name is Ntokozo. And in the last 3 years, about 3 times as many people have died from pollution than from COVID. You want coal, we own the mines. Great. You want oil and gas, we own the wells. Great. You want nuclear energy, we own the uranium. You want solar power, we own the, solar power isn't feasible. There you have it. Simple. And then I made a video called The 5 Winners, which you can watch. See before I said to you blessing and curse. Say this aloud now. I said before you blessing and curse. Each of us has an opportunity to create. What will we choose? Will we choose a curse? Will we choose temptation? Or will we choose a blessing? Will we choose wisdom? Will we choose a future? Will we choose myopia? Short-term thinking, what can I get today, tonight? Or will we choose longer-term thinking? What are we going to choose? People have made movies. This is a movie called Unearthed. My brother made a movie later on. And now if you look at this graph, you can see the green curve of renewable energy prices coming down versus the blue curve and the red curve. And I've got more up-to-date graphs. I've added more information, but you can see that coal, nuclear, gas, hydroelectric power costs going up dramatically, and renewable energy costs plummeting. So this is about me. That office number doesn't work anymore. It's been cancelled. And please like, comment, subscribe, share, ask questions, and read my new book, The Last Blackout. And it's based on my 20 years of research and development, which is in my second book, which is called A User Manual for Life on Earth. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, and I wish you a pleasant weekend, and I pray that you learn the lessons that are in Torah, that are in our most ancient wisdom, that David Lipschitz brings you in this channel.